Ibn Khaldun urges historians to sharpen their critical skills, to compare texts with subtext and context, by not just focusing on merely recording events, but on examining environments and societies surrounding them. Now that his theory is complete and ready, he can start exposing false historical accounts, employing logical methods and techniques. Here they are in their alleged chronological order. Ham, the son of Prophet Nuh alayhi salam. The most ancient myth Ibn Khaldun disputes refers to the so-called blackness curse of Ham. Ham is one of Prophet Nuh's son, who is said to have been cursed by his father after seeing his nakedness. This event has opened the way to different kinds of interpretations in Jewish and Christian traditions. But later on, commentaries have started to describe that curse as being a darkening of Ham and his descendants' skin tone, to justify the enslavement of black Africans who were said to be Ham's offspring. However, Ibn Khaldun disputed that claim. He pointed out that the Torah, which contains the Jewish sacred texts, makes no mention of the curse being related to skin color. In his Muqaddimah, Ibn Khaldun explains in depth that differences in human pigmentation and ethnic characteristics are not innate, as we all share the same ancestors, but entirely caused by climate and environment. Quote unquote. Genealogists who had no knowledge of the true nature of things imagined that black people are the children of Ham, and that they were singled out to be black as the result of Nuh's curse. It is mentioned in the Torah that Nuh cursed his son Ham. No reference is made there to blackness. Even if the genealogical construction of Nuh's children were correct, it would be the result of mere guesswork. Distinctions between nations are caused by geographical location, as in the case of the Zanj, the Abyssinians, and the Sudanese blacks, as well as the Slavic whites. It should be understood then that Ibn Khaldun views phenotypic differentiation not on the basis of inherent biological distinctions. Differences in human complexion are conditioned by the environment their ancestors have been exposed to, in a time where heaters and air conditioners did not exist. Second, Israelites before and after Egypt. The second myth Ibn Khaldun contradicts with rational logic concerns the Israelite armies led by Prophet Musa alayhi salam. At his time, historians like al-Mas'udi were narrating that these armies were composed of 600,000 men. That narration has been accepted and transmitted despite the absurdity of that figure. Ibn Khaldun explains that a common mistake historians and storytellers commit is the exaggeration of numbers, quote unquote. Figures, either of sums of money or of soldiers, offer a good opportunity for false information and constitute a vehicle for nonsensical statements. They must be controlled and checked with the help of known fundamental facts. Regarding Musa's armies, he explains, as he is himself a policymaker who's familiar with military matters, that it is physically impossible that anyone could support such a number of soldiers, all carrying weapons between Egypt and Syria. Such a massive army cannot march or fight as a unit and coordinate in battle, quote unquote. If it were in battle formation, it would extend 2, 3, or more times beyond the field of vision. How then could two such parties fight with each other, or one battle formation gain the upper hand, when one flank does not know what the other flank is doing? He also mentions the conquest of the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar over the Jewish population and Jerusalem, thanks to an army that was much greater than theirs, but that wasn't going beyond 120,000 soldiers. If Israelites' armies had such a number of soldiers, their empire would be much greater, since the size of an administrative unit is directly correlated to the number of militias supporting the dynasty. And last argument, Yaqub and his kinsmen were only 70 when entering Egypt, and Musa appeared 4 generations later, which makes the number of 600,000 soldiers even more absurd. Quote unquote. There were only 3 generations between Musa and Yaqub, according to the best informed scholars. Musa was the son of Imran, the son of Kohat, the son of Levi, the son of Yaqub. This is Musa's genealogy in the Torah. It is improbable that the descendant of one man could branch out into such a number within 4 generations. Third, Alexander the Great and Alexandria. Everything mentioned until now was part of sacred Abrahamic history, but Ibn Khaldun also tackles secular accounts, with the most notable example of Alexander the Great. Alexander III, from the Greek kingdom of Macedon, is most notably known for his military campaigns throughout the eastern part of the Mediterranean Sea, conquering lands like Egypt, Asia Minor, the Levant, stretching his empire as far as Persia and the Indian subcontinent. As the leader of a gigantic empire, countless epic tales started flourishing around his accomplishment. For instance, it has been reported by historians that the eponymous city of Alexandria was founded after one of his alleged legendary achievements. Ibn Khaldun narrates, quote-unquote, "Sea monsters prevented Alexander from building Alexandria. He took a wooden container in which a glass box was inserted and dived it into the bottom of the sea. There, he drew pictures of the devilish monsters he saw. He then had metal effigies of the animals made and set them up opposite the place where building was going on. When the monster came out and saw the effigies, they fled. Alexander was thus able to complete the building of Alexandria." Although that story has been transmitted by respected, although criticized historians like Al-Masrudi, Ibn Khaldun dismissed that story as pure nonsense, and he methodologically explains why. First off, from a political point of view, no ruler would take such a risk by himself. Second, from an Islamic point of view, Ibn Khaldun, as a Maliki scholar, says that in sacred texts, jinns are not known to have specific forms or effigies. Therefore, a story of sea monsters with many heads, in order to impress an audience, just intends to indicate ugliness and frightfulness. And last point, in a much more straightforward argument, Alexander could simply not have dived so deep in the sea without perishing, even in a glass box, because he would be lacking air. The most important point here is not whether Ibn Khaldun is right or not, since the jinn argument would sound fabulous to a modern non-Muslim historian. What matters and what was revolutionary for his time is that he submits historical information to a rigorous, logical and methodological reasoning, eliminating any narration going against what Ibn Khaldun saw as natural causes. 4. The founding dynasty of Morocco, the Idrisid. Here, Ibn Khaldun deals with a historical rumor that was much closer to him, both historically and geographically, and that was making him particularly upset. Having worked in Fez, the ancient capital of modern-day Morocco, while working in the local court, gossip mongers were privately suggesting that Idris II, who's one of Ali ibn Abi Talib's direct descendants, radiallahu an, his name being Idris ibn Abdullah ibn Hassan ibn Ali ibn Abi Talib, was the product of an adulterous relationship, as he was born months after his father died poisoned from Abbasid emissaries while living in the desert among local Amazigh tribe, natives of what is called now North Africa. This is where Ibn Khaldun applies one of his ideas developed in the Muqaddimah, his masterpiece. As Idris' family was living with tribes in the desert, a scandal such as an extramarital affair is simply not possible without the entire tribe being aware of it, as people were living in close communities and there was no place where such things could be done in secrecy, due to the dangerous and hostile desert life. Here is what Ibn Khaldun concludes from it, quote-unquote, "How stupid of those God-forsaken men. They should know that the elder Idris married into the Berber tribes and was firmly rooted in desert life. In the desert, no such thing could remain a secret. The neighbors, if they are women, can always see, and if they are men, always hear what their women are doing, because the houses are low and clustered together without space between them. Furthermore, all Maghrebi Berbers agreed to render the oath of allegiance to the younger Idris as his father's successor. They voluntarily agreed to obey him. They swore that they were willing to die for him. Had they told each other some such scandalous story or heard it from someone else, some of them, at least, would have refused to do those things. End of quote. There are many other legends that Ibn Khaldun thoroughly unmasked in his Muqaddimah, like the story of a city entirely made of copper, which Ibn Khaldun says is economically and physically unrealistic. Anyway, last but not least, here's an anecdote Ibn Khaldun narrates about the stories of his contemporary, the famous Ibn Battuta, one of the greatest travelers of all time.